This week on Chapters Over Coffee, I want to welcome anyone new to the podcast. We are two sisters who read 5 chapters, discuss, and talk about what happens next. Why? Because we love the cliffhangers. Cue the sarcasm. But we like trying to figure out what happens to see if we're right or wrong. Now, this week we're going over chapters 11 through 15. We finally hit the part where Kingfisher and Carrion head to Zavarin. Um, So we start off by just a small description of how Fisher and Sarah said goodbye. Fisher does leave a shadow gate open for them, mostly her and Laura to travel back and forth between Kalish and the palace. And he warded it with his blood, so that way nobody else can go through this. Um, they were supposed to they're supposed to come back in 3 days. That's when Saris awakens the Quicksilver, but I'm gonna say it's gonna be longer than the 3 days, just by the trouble that they've already managed to get themselves into. Um, yeah, so I think it might take longer than 3 days. So Lorith and Saris are training in the training room, and as they're training, Saris realizes that Lorith promised Fisher that he would keep her safe, and that's the only reason why he's there. Because he can't stand it being there. Since he had almost died 2 feeders before Fisher was gave him part of his soul to keep him alive. And then it kind of breaks down what everybody else is doing. So we have Talena and Maynard going to tend to the wounded warriors who fled Iron.
I think so.
Ishabel had returned to her people to kindly or politely ask the elders if any of them knew how to seal Saris's alchemical runes. Ren had ridden to small settlements to warn them about the rot, and Dania was sending out hunting parties to keep the infected at bay. By the time Saris was ready to give up training, Lorith brings up about the Ajin Gate story but this time he brings up Morel because to this point, she has no idea who Morel is. She thought the name sounded familiar, but she doesn't know who she is. Um, So as they leave the palace, they're heading into town, what they call the Cogs. So that's when Laura tells Saris about Morel and how she was burned to death, and that she was now part of Fisher's sword. Did you have something?
No,
Oh, I saw your hand
sorry.
go up, Olive. I'm like, I saw it out of the corner. I'm like, oh, I don't want to go too quick. If you have something to like put in
Now,
here,
other than the fact that I still don't understand how, like, she's part of the sword. Like, I don't. Is
I
that
can imagine
kind of
it's
like
something.
she did it by will, the way that his mom has stuck around?
I wonder if we'll get
Like, I
more on
don't.
that.
Like, I still don't quite understand
Unless
all
she
of
has
that.
a certain type of magic.
Maybe.
We don't know exactly like fully what she was capable of doing. I mean, we still don't know everything that Fisher's capable of doing, considering we find out more things that he can do in these chapters.
Yeah.
So as they're walking, Saris only believes that Lorith is the only Fae around because he was drawing attention to himself. But Laura states that there were more Fae than she'd think, but most of them were thralls. They go to this tavern called Fool's Paradise, and she sees that it was full of Fae. Even Fae children were there. So they sit at the bar. The bartender looks at Lorth, telling him that he remembers him from just the other day, but the incident happened 600 years ago. And this
Talk
dude
about a
remembers it
grudge.
like, yeah, it remembers it like it was yesterday. Because Lorth had gotten into a fight and broke a table. So the two of them are going back and forth on the matter. Then Lorth threatens the bartender with a Vizieth, but the bartender still wasn't having it, even though he kind of was scared. He just stated that only thralls were permitted there and ungoverned fae were not welcome. So this causes two more high bloods to intervene. But Lorth cuts one of the guys' hands off and then takes his hand and shoves it into his mouth, fingers first, before the guy could scream. Um, and the next thing you know, Taladeus shows up out of nowhere, walking in the door with somebody hidden under a cloak. Um, Tal tells them to leave, this person to leave before Saris could get a look at them. I full on 100% believe that it was Foley. That is my prediction that it was Foley
Interesting.
Lorraine. Okay. Um, and then we learn there at the end that the tavern, Tal actually owns that tavern and just ends the debt with Lorith that he was supposed to pay. And the bartender was not happy at all.
Yeah.
But the guy sold it to Tal, so it's Tal's rules. All right. So then we kind of end it there and we go into the next chapter. And I enjoyed this chapter kind of because it gave us a little bit more look into Tal. Like he opened up about, the whole idea of siring someone. And honestly, I didn't know there was a big difference between enthralling somebody and siring somebody because it confirms about that there's no love triangle between, Saris, Fisher, and Tao because everybody thought that little clip that she had released before the book came out that it was Tao saying that he was in love with her. And this kind of just confirms that siring and enthralling are two different point of views, pretty much. He pretty much became like her dad is how they kind
Yeah.
of described it, or like your maid and maker. But we start with this chapter of Tal wanting to talk to Saris alone. And then so when she asks who that person was under the hood, he just tells her that it was none of her business. And again, this is why I kind of believe that it's Foley.
It makes sense.
Um,
They would have like a connection, or they not really a connection, but like there are a lot of similarities. So maybe he could shed some light on like transitioning or kind of coping with like becoming a vampire or whatever, even though she's, different. She's only half
mhm.
vampire. Like they still have their sired to tell, I guess, that maybe they could talk about it, I guess. I don't know. Couples therapy. Sires
Family.
sires therapy. I
It'd be
don't
family
know.
therapy.
Yeah.
Family therapy. Um, he kind of starts off by wondering where Fisher was at and if he was still in Ibelia, because at this point he needs to make sure that Saris was protected at all times. Because if Fisher wasn't there, then some vampire was going to try their luck against her. But she didn't want the extra protection because then that does make her look like she is weak. Um, And then during the short time inside his office, Saris's runes start acting up, and Tal notices this. And but he can also feel, we later on that, they can feel each other's emotions, so he can feel her discomfort to the pain. She tries to lie and say, that nothing was wrong, but we learn that a vampire cannot lie to its maker. A blue aura comes off of them. The stronger the aura, the bigger the lie. And according to Tal, she was like lighting up his office. Um, so she opens up to him. She realizes that she finally has somebody in her corner willing to take care of her. So she decides to confide into him and lets him know about her markings flaring up. She tells him about the conversation with Adina. And this made him concerned about the conversation because of the different type of echoes or whatever they call them. Um, But Cyrus had an actual conversation with her, and it wasn't a stilted conversation like somebody, like an echo would try to have.
Yeah.
So it was physically her, according to Tom, but he
She
believes that
wasn't repeating.
yeah. And she called
She
Cyrus
wasn't
by her
confused.
name and
Like,
everything. So Tao believes like that she stayed there by sheer force of will, but he also believes that it must have not been good and torture in itself.
yeah.
So it makes has she been following Fisher around? Like, did she see his experience in what he went through during the maze and everything?
Yeah.
Like, I wonder if like he'll ever get that encounter with her because so far he's only heard it from Morel and now Cyrus.
Hmm.
So does he himself get that interaction with her at some point? Um, Talus, Talus, Talatea states that when her rune smoldered, that would indicate that she has access to the elemental fire magic. And this kind of indicates about the whole brimstone. And brimstone's just sulfur and stuff, so this kind of gives that. And then, and now that they were healed, it implies that she may have, hold on real quick, that she may also have regenerate magic. Is that how you say that word?
I think so.
Physical magic, power over the body. He believes that at some point she'll be able to heal others with her abilities, which she's kind of really powerful alchemist, so she's gonna have all types of stuff that she doesn't fully know what she's capable of doing. So she kind of jokes that she's afraid, like, if her magic builds up, like, she's gonna explode and she's gonna damage 40 miles worth. But Tao thinks that if she does explode with her powers, it's gonna be larger than the 40 miles and it would cause a chain reaction and would unmake magic everywhere. And we kind of get to look at this at the end of chapter 14 of a build-up. So it's just probably the first of many. So then we finally get to the whole reason that he wanted to talk to her. This is where we learn, that he has sired two people, her and Foley. Now he doesn't come out and say that it was Foley, but we know that it was Foley because of Fisher when they would talk about it. They compared it to parents, like a parent and a child, so he never wanted children. So, with being sired and maker to each other, it's Hal's duty to make sure that she understands what it means to be a member of the Corps and that she's equipped to survive, which obviously she is. We know this. He also doesn't want to step on toes with Fisher because their relationship is already rocky with everything that would happened during his time in the maze. But he did state that with her not being full-blooded vampire, she's not going to rage. Her thirst isn't going to rage like a full-blooded, newly turned vampire. So he really doesn't have to keep an eye on her and teach her the ways. And then this is like going back, he reflects on his time, going to the maze, how it wasn't fun for him either for what he had to do. But at the same time, it was better that he went and that Malcolm had sent him rather than somebody else that would have done far more worse to Fisher than he would have.
Yeah.
So then we kind of end it. He wants to publicly disavow their bond. He wants to sever it. She agrees. She doesn't like the front row seat to his emotions, but she wanted to ask him for something in return. She wants him to rule, and he didn't like this. Like, he was hesitant, but she wants him to rule when she's not there. She pretty much wants him to just take it over
Yeah.
without taking it over. Because she has no desire to learn how to rule them, but she wants Tal to do it because he was also Malcolm's second, so nobody should say anything that she chose him to be her second either. But by the end of the conversation, they decided there was no maker and maid bullshit, but instead they had their friendship. They get a friendship out of it. So I think that's like a good one. They both opened up to each other. Right. Going into the next chapter, we get our first look into Kingfisher and Carrion and Zilvarin. And let's just say things are not going as they would have hoped for, or at
No,
least as Fisher would hoped for. He thought it was going to be, quick, let's get this done, 3 days tops, we're gone.
he should know it's fucking carrion.
You think he's starting to figure that out now. The moment they started to come out of the Quicksilver, Madra already had a unit of archers waiting for them, shooting at them. Carrion's freaking out during this whole time
He's a
because he
fucking
has no
pussy
sword.
during this whole thing.
So, yes. So, in the words of the Quicksilver still in Fisher's eye, instead of calling him Carrion, they called him Smart Mouth. So they were just saying Smart Mouth sounds stupid because he's being a big baby right now, freaking out because they're being attacked. Once fully out, Fisher uses what energy he was able to use at the time to cause his shadows to black it out. And no one could see, what was going on. And it was easy enough to make the guards take themselves out because Fisher was the only one that could see through his shadows. Once getting through the mess, I do love how Fisher is like in his mind he once talks about getting rid of Carrion, like he's done with him already. He just wants to get rid of him, but he knows that Cyrus would not be happy if he was just to like ditch him.
Yeah.
And then he starts thinking about why the hell that Carrion named his sword Simon, because that is not a strong name in Ibelia. It doesn't make
Like,
sense to
dude,
him.
your horse's name is Bill. You
Exactly.
have no room to judge
Exactly.
at all.
Neither one of them brought their swords with them because they didn't need Madra getting a hold of one of them and closing the Quicksilver to trap them there. Smart thinking. So they made it through out in the hall. Carrion's still freaking out with his eyes closed and stuff. But they're out in the hall. Fisher gets his attention, and starts running down the hall. And Carrion realizes as they're running, like, hey, why did you tell me the plan back there? Fisher's just like, because you're not gonna like it. Next thing you know, he's chucking Carrion out the window as he's jumping out the window. And then during this, we learn that Fisher has secondary magic that assuming allows him to make nets or some type of thing. So he's pretty much Spider-Man at this point. Because we really don't get much detail, just that he called on his shadows to form a rope to grab Carrion, and then he made a net somehow. Um, that he was hoping that the net would make because he stated that it was fickle and often wondering when he would call it. So I'm kind of hoping we kind of get more into that and exactly what that magic is on that part. But the net does catch Carrion and then it kind of like doesn't catch him. So Fisher falls through it. They destroy some lady's stall. The stall owner then is completely stunned looking at these two huge dudes before Fisher realizes that they're not glamored, so they're full on Fae. So he uses again what little magic he was able to use to glamour them. And then, like, the whole time they're just standing there, the only thing running through his mind is what he could possibly look like glamored as a human. Like, um, they took care of all that
Probably a
business.
small, puny man.
Something. Well, we do know he's pale. We do know that he's pale. That's all we know is that he's too pale to fit in with everyone there. The first thing they were going to take care of was the silver before they were to get Hayden and any of figure out about the feeders. But as they're going through Silvarin, oh, scary. Excuse me. Carrion notes that Fisher's too pale to blend in again, that he would bring too much attention to them, and that's the last thing they needed. But we learn now that there was nothing Fisher could do at this point until his magic replenishes, because he's not Zilvarin born and could not draw from it freely as he would be able to when he's in Ivalia. Then that they were lucky that he could even use his magic at all at this point. After some time, Fisher notices that they were not heading towards the palace, but away from it. Carrion says that no one has ever broken into Madra's treasury, let alone even know where it's at. We did learn that Madra had stripped the whole city of all metal, precious and otherwise. Similar, and I kind of shit, what's the word I'm looking for? Compared it to the same thing that Belican did with Ivalia. Like they completely got rid of it. Then Carrion says that they were going to the next best source, which was a place called the Brigades Bank. It was a place he owns, and at this time we did not know that he actually has a co-owner, which screws him over. As he's opening this door to like a secret tunnel to go through, Fisher notes an act of small magic that Carrion has when he was able to open the door. Um, and then I just want to kind of know, I didn't go into full detail because a lot of this is like they're just walking the streets. So there's not much to this. Nothing like really exciting happens. So I kind of just summarized what I could. Carrion does try to joke around with Fisher, about being at his disposable since the next step requires Carrion to take them somewhere to get the silver. Um, and at this time, Carrion's kind of like looking off to the side, and Fisher notes how much he looked like his dad because when he was younger, I don't remember the place was called, but the place that he would get the biscuits with his where his mom's statue's at. He was given a coin by his mom that actually had Carrion's dad on the coin. So he notes the resemblance between the two. This is disgusting because Carrion jokes about the beer where they were going, that it was distilled from cat urine. But when Fisher had tried it, he doesn't think that Carrion was really joking about it because of how bad it tasted. So Fisher brings up about hating being in Zavarin, but Karen just tells him it grows on you. So Fisher brings up about he's like, which part? The children starving in the streets or the hot beer? Karen just ignores the comments about the kids and doesn't understand that the fact that beer isn't supposed to be hot. That's all he's used to is warm to hot beer. Warm beer is disgusting anyways, so
Most beer is disgusting anyways,
yeah,
so
that too. um so they're already, well, I think they went to Kala's,
I think
Kayla's,
so.
however it's pronounced. Fisher's getting fed up already being there. He wants to leave so he can get the silver, grab Hayden, and get home to his mate. Karen had to come clean and tell Fisher that they were there because his co-owner to the bank had the second key needed to open the vault for what they call the contraband. But since Karen had disappeared for so long, he believes that Eric, his co owner, had hired a vault breaker to break in so he could move their goods elsewhere. And then this just sets Fisher off. It pisses him off bad. So he tries to get up to leave because again, he was ready to leave the place. He was going back to Maja's palace to tear down brick by brick, locating her treasury just to go home and or sit and wait for the 3 days for Cyrus to open the Quicksilver so he could get back to her as quickly as possible. But Carrion stops him, lets him know, that the Vault Breaker would show up. He always shows up after his dealings. So after some time passes, when the guy finally shows up, one look at the two sitting there and the dude runs. So there was no other choice for them to run. But as they're running after this guy, Fisher notes that he wasn't looking at Carrion when he ran. He was looking at Fisher himself. So it makes you wonder, what did he look like glamored? Is he
Yeah.
even glamored at all? Carrie never said anything that he wasn't glamored, just that he was too pale. Then again, from what we know about chapter 15, that the guy probably knows he was Fae for how pale he was. He probably put two and two together for what we find out.
Yeah.
And that's all I had.
Okay. That takes us into chapter 14, back in Amontraeth, from Saris's point of view. She's going over, they had lost 1,373 people. There were 1,665 that were known to be infected, and they lost 2,039 hectares of land to being rotted and infected. It's spread that much. I imagine hectares is a lot of like miles or acres equivalent. I have no idea how big a fucking hectare is. I've never even heard of a hectare.
Uh,
So,
must be their terms.
um, yeah, I don't know. They have teams of warriors riding out each morning, with whom Danya is among. They're cornering, dismembering the infected. Remember, they can't actually be killed, so they're just continuously alive at this point. Um, Saris is stuck in the Black Palace while the destruction is sweeping across the land. She's feeling stuck and shackled by the crown that she doesn't want, but knows that she has to stay and keep it because it would be so much more worse if somebody else were to step up and take it. Like if somebody else there on the high court or whatever were to stand up and claim it or try to take it or whatever, that would just be all bad for all of them. Like, I feel like the war would probably start back up again. Like, there wouldn't be any sort of like peace talk trying to go on. This is also the chapter where we have our whole like misfire with Carrion being in the training room with
Yeah.
Laura, which is crazy. And so, but we know it's like an editing error or something. But her and Tal, they're having a little conversation. They're on their way to the library. Um, and he mentions that, she shouldn't worry about anybody there with the high court because they aren't really worried about her as a person per se, but more of what she represents. And, I kind of love what she says to him. And she responds like, shouldn't they? Like, I'm fucking powerful, basically. Like, pretty sure, like, shouldn't they be worried about me? To which he just says that he's thought of that before and asks him what he thinks of it, but he just shrugs like, eh. I was a little taken aback by that because I feel like he should admit that they should be worried about that because of like, I mean, she's an all power alchemist. She's half vampire, half fae. Nothing anybody has ever seen before. So, what other powers is she going to hold on top of that and be capable of? And I really hope that she gets the chance to show them the meaning of fuck around and find out. Like, for 100% hope that she finds out. Um, so they have to climb up 573 steps to get to this library because having it up high is part of Fae tradition. It's one of the few, if only one, that Malcolm actually held on to. And they believed that the closer to the heavens a court's gathered knowledge was, the better. Along with the idea that the harder you had to work for the knowledge you were seeking, the more you had earned the right to benefit from it, which made it one of Malcolm's favorite places to visit until he just stopped going. And then that made that Tal's favorite spot to go to. Saris describes that it's not as large as the Winter Palace Library, but she still thinks it's beautiful, and she notices that there is a paper bird flying around, to which Tal says, it lives there, it lays eggs, it takes care of its young, and it It's there. It represents one of Evelia's rarest birds, called a stargazer. Um, Algat is in the library. I wondered, like, when it was like, oh, I heard a voice, couldn't tell if it was female or male or whatever, if it was her fucking lurking in the shadows of the library. And I was right. But she's there. She's all sarcastic and everything about how, what an honor it is to be visited by their new regent. And she tells Saris that she's been waiting for her because she knows that she's hungry. Saris automatically assumes like she's talking about blood, but she's not. She knows that that's not what she's hungry for. She's hungry for information, she's hungry for home, and she's hungry for release. And so Saris then gets pissed at Tal because, like, that was his plan all along to take her to Algat, but he refused, like, he just neglected to share that with Saris, that this would be the best person for her to go to because she is the keeper of records and she knows them better than anyone. And there's books there that Saris is going to want to meet that only Algat can facilitate. Like, she's the only person that can get her the books. And Saris is like, no, Belican destroyed all the alchemy books when they wiped out all the people, blah, blah, blah. So there's not anything there that, she would want to read. Algat automatically starts spitting off a bunch of bullshit, and, Tal has to step in as like, that's enough. Just fucking stop. Um, and Algat proceeds to tell Saris that Belican had never passed the threshold as Malcolm had forbade it, so the books there are intact, and tells her that everyone else saw danger in an alchemist, but Malcolm saw power and he nurtured them. And she kind of like brings up like, don't you want to know why Madra and Belican had them all hunted down and killed them? When Tal interrupts and is like, come on, let's not scare her. Like, she needs to understand what she is, not be terrified of what she is. But I want to know where she was going with that. And I'm kind of hoping that we get that more of a backstory as to why there was a specific reason. Yeah, that they're powerful and stuff, but why specifically were they afraid of them? And Malcolm was not. Obviously, Malcolm sought power. We get that. And he saw that in the alchemist. But what could they do to Madra and Belican that they didn't want to happen? Like, what was their fear in that?
Taking over them, like, or like losing
Could they have
their own power because right now they're the highest,
was there an alchemist that gave them all that power? Did we find that out? Is that what happened?
I
Like,
we
was that a deal where they each got a separate level of power? Like, I know that there was a curse and stuff like that, but did the other two, was it something that an alchemist could undo? Like, they had something that could be reversed
I'm wondering if that's
and
why they took
given
the
to
silver
them?
though, like just to kind of stop the alchemist, but to also prevent them from getting to Malcolm.
Yeah. Uh, Algat then tells her, I can get you the books that you need, but of course, with everything, there is a cost, and that cost is blood. And she gives 5 drops of blood, to which Algat feeds it to the fucking cat guru or whatever his name is that lurks around the library. And that earns her one whole book instead of one page. So Theris obviously feels so lucky to be able to have made that deal with her. And even like they have a little spat back and forth because like she's like, did you give my cat like undiluted blood? And Saris is like, yep. And she's all like, great. It's like sugar for kids, the cat's gonna be fucking running around the stacks all day long. So Saris is like, I hope he fucking keeps it up. To which Algat can hear, because she can hear people's thoughts and stuff.
Yeah.
And
So I was right when Algate was like messing with her that day during her coronation because
yeah,
she can read and she knew exactly what Fisher was thinking and saying. Like, she knew it
yep.
all.
Oh yeah. Algat tells her that the only way to keep her from reading her minds is to basically demand her not to do it, but doesn't recommend that she do that because she may need her one day. So, what does Saris do? She demands her to stop listening to her fucking thoughts.
And Fishers.
And oh, and Fishers, yes. So then Algat goes obviously to go find the book that she's going to give her. And as Cyrus is admiring the ceiling in the library, a projectile hits her in the ribs, and they're thrashing on the floor. Her daggers are in her hands now, and she's twisting and thrashing under the thing that had tackled her, which was a feral, dark haired, blue eyed creature bearing his gold plated fangs at her, saying, "You're done." So then she smashes him in the balls with her knee, and she's able to free a hand and grab a dagger, sinking it into his side. Demanding to know who sent him to kill her, she doesn't get an answer. As her hands light up in ungodly pain, light fills the library, and she's not able to control the wave of power that leaves her in a white-blue shockwave, in which she manages to put a 20-foot hole into the side of Amentreth.
Ew.
I'm pretty sure we need to figure out how to bind her runes, because she's about to fuck some shit up big time.
Oh, yeah.
Unintentionally. Unintentionally, by the way, but she's about to do some fucking damage.
Or at least she's got to learn how to control it.
Yeah. Um, so leading us into the next chapter, we are back in Solvarin with Kingfisher and Carrion. They found the Vault Breaker. He's freaking out, pleading with them that he didn't want to help him. He didn't want to help the other guy. He made him do it. We find out Boreth is a shop owner. He's a purveyor of all kinds of bizarre and interesting goods. Um, he has no idea where Eric would have taken everything. Wink, wink, because he's lying, saying that Eric was very paranoid. Carrion tells him, like, tell us where Eric is, or Fisher's basically gonna, like, rip out your fingernails, making Borath think that, it would be a good idea to just kind of maybe give them what they want. Um, Fisher's trying to get Carrion, like, just kill him, be done with it. And then Borath pipes up, like, I can't tell you where it is, but I could show you where it is. Um, because the guys laid out traps and they'll need help to get past them. Um, so they're going through town and stuff, and Fisher even notices, like, there's a lot of people for this time of day, like, shouldn't they be at work and stuff? And we find out a little bit more that, or like he gives a little bit more insight to Fisher about how, like, if you don't line up early to get your water rations, you're not gonna fucking get anything. And then you have to wait till the next day to try to get something. So all of the people are heading there to be able to get in line to hope to get something. And so Borath leads them to a wall, and you can see, like, a little bit of a seam that there is a door there that doesn't look like a door, like, you can't tell. And it takes a huge magnet to get through, in which Carrion is able to open it. And he leads them through, like, there's filled with rooms. There's even dead fae bodies. Like, there's dead fae bodies that are in there. But he leads them to an area, and Fisher's like, no, absolutely not. We are leaving, and we are not fucking coming back. Like, we're officially done. The hunt is over. Carrion's like, no, we're not leaving until we get what I came for. And, Fisher's like, well, if you go in there, you ain't fucking coming back out. Like, it's plain as day. Like, there's something there. And, before Carrion can realize, like, what exactly is going on, Vorath lifts him up and puts him in a trap. Fisher describes it as, like, a spider web. Like, it's a demon trap that's now being used like a spider web. Like, Carrion is basically, like, glued to the floor. He cannot go anywhere. It's pretty much impossible to get out of it, even though it's however old it is, like it's
Hmm.
lost power, but it's still powerful. Um, and all we know is that, there's millions of scorpions just clicking their
Yeah.
way in his direction, and that's our fucking cliffhanger for this week.
Yeah, they've got themselves in some major trouble.
But the other thing, okay, so the guy, Vorath, it talked about how like his eyes lit up and just like the guy was real suspicious. Like, is there something about him? Like, they would be able to tell if he was Fey or there was something up with him, right? Like, Fisher would be able to. No, I don't think maybe not because he couldn't see past the glamour his father put on
Carrion.
Carrion. So
So it
maybe not.
depends. But
Borat
he's
just seemed
working.
like he was a little too like ha 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 like mastermindish about like putting him in
Oh,
this
the
trap
rat.
and
Who was the
stuff like
rat in
that.
Harry Potter? That's who he reminds me of.
Peter Pettigrew.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there I don't know. It just seemed like there was a little bit more to
Mm,
Vorath
see, but
than
then we don't
meets
know
the eye.
because he's working with a demon. So what type of
Yeah, like is
special
Eric the demon?
things?
Is he like an undercover demon or like I don't know. I hope we get more backstory and they fuck this dude up for sure.
Oh, Fisher's not gonna. Well, you missed the part. He does take his shadows, draws his energy, and makes
Yeah.
a mimic of Nemerel with his shadows right at the end there. Okay, so this is kind of going back. I have a theory on the two sons because during their whole adventure, Fisher cannot figure out why there are two suns in Zavarin and why
Alan
it's
Myth.
so hot. Yes. What if Madro is the reason why there's two suns? Because if anything, if any was one was to open the Quicksilver, that would allow vampires and feeders through if it was dark out, if it ever got dark out. So is that why there's two suns?
That
To keep the feeders and vampires away? Because we can't forget, Belican already tried to send somebody through to kill Madra.
hmm
So is it a way to keep Malcolm from coming to get her? Or to find alchemists, like to come get like any type of alchemist that they may have, and that's why they're getting rid of all of the silver
I don't know.
and stuff. That's kind of my theory on the two sons. And I'm kind of hoping, I hope we get answers to that because they keep bringing it up. So we have to at least get something, either this book or next book, why there's two sons in Zavarin.
Yeah.
Because it's been brought up multiple times and nobody knows why. Or is it the gods interfering?
Like the gods that they all worship because they're the good guys aren't actually the good guys.
Only
And
the one that they don't like, the god of chaos and change, is the one trying to save everybody.
well, yeah, because like he
So,
even
and
said, like
he's
we've
the
got to
one,
try to stop the rot because the other ones are worried about all of that and that could like untangle everything and
and
like
he's the one that
end
nobody likes.
the world. Like, yeah. So I
That's kind
think
of like
that, yeah.
my theory. But I just can't figure out, if you're so worried about them coming through and you were so worried about Belican sending somebody to kill you, well, why did you all guys team up in Quicksilver
hmm
and have a little tea party on the Dacis
Yeah.
or whatever they were doing? But that's kind of my theory on the two sons because it's brought
Makes
up for a
sense.
reason. It's
Yeah.
brought up for a reason. So maybe we'll get some insight. Did you have anything else? that you wanted to
I do not
add?
have anything else. That is where I'm at. I don't
Again,
have a theory yet, except for my unhinged theory that the good gods are not the good gods, and Zareth is the only one that actually is decent.
yeah, to a
That's my
certain
unhinged
extent.
theory.
To
Yeah.
a certain extent, because he was interfering on some things. So,
Yeah. That's my unhinged theory.
again, these were kind of more filler chapters. It's just the beginning of Fisher and Carrion's quest of 3 days, which again, I believe is not going to be 3 days. I think it's going to take longer than 3 days. And it's going to screw everything up with the Quicksilver being opened. And who knows what's going to happen. So, yeah. But thank you for watching or listening to Chapters Over Coffee, and join us next week for chapters 16 through 20, where we find out the fate of Carrie and Fisher, and possibly as well as how pissed off Algate's going to be that there's a hole in her library right now.
So
So,
bad. So bad.
and
That's not
she's
good.
already, and Cyrus is already on, Algate's kind of shit list anyway. So, just add
Yeah.
more to it.